So here we go, 4 weeks in the gyms. I've had a really good last week, about 2.5 grand, so that's the most I've made so far, but it's been fairly consistent from the beginning. Around 1,200 in my first week, starting from scratch with no customers, and then into the second with 2,000 in the third, and then the biggest week this week. So it's been really good. That was a reasonably full week. I had mainly bigger jobs. Garden cleanups is something that you'll get definitely at the very beginning if you don't have a customer base that you've started with or purchased initially. And I've had quite a few leads come through coming into early spring, which a lot of yard cleanups, and we should start to see the most pick up. I had a few different scenarios that were quite challenging. One of those was a customer that thought my quote was overpriced, and I found myself having to justify the pricing, and there was a bit of correspondence going back and forth with the customer. I don't think whatever price I come up with the customer was probably nowhere near what the customer thought the job was worth. So you will have those customers where you'll just price them. They'll have a preconceived idea of what that job's worth, and you won't be able to you won't be able to have a win with that customer necessarily. So the good thing is it is your business, and you can choose if that's your price, that you don't want to compromise on that, because you know the time involved in it, and you've got to be confident to back yourself. So there's nothing wrong with saying no. I mean, you try and work with that customer as much as you can, but if you can't, if you can't come to an agreement, you don't have to carry out that work for limited income either. So customers will have a certain expectation of what you're going to do for the job, and sometimes the challenge in quoting that is making sure that you spell it out very clearly. I had one customer recently where you go through the quote and they say they want a certain set of things completed in the task, and then all of a sudden they come back and they want more things added in that task, and for free, I might say as well. So they might just hover over you while you're doing the work and kind of start adding a few extra things on. So I spoke to my franchisor about that, following it, but I thought I handled it pretty well. So I guess the best thing that I did in that circumstance was say to the customer, look, we've talked about these items in the quote yesterday. I have got some other jobs I've got to go to, and we're kind of getting to our quota with the amount of time that I've invested into this job already. Just so they're aware from the get-go, because what you'll find is if you start adding on those little things, those jobs will turn into 30 minutes over, an hour over, and all of a sudden you're running late for your next customer, which is obviously a priority as well. So you just got to be cautious, because I guess people get excited when you're doing work for them, they start to add other things on, but you need to be very direct. You are running a business, you are trying to make money, and you've just got to navigate that as it comes. I did have my first little repair job. I crashed into a letterbox, one of those terrible styrofoam kind of letterboxes with the fiberglass kind of outside shell. I turned the mower around and accidentally pressed the little button on my self-propelled, because I'm running electric gear, and it crashed into the corner of the letterbox and made a chip in the paint. So that did go in your head. Do you tell the customer? Yes, you need to tell the customer. It's best to be honest and upfront, and as much as I was disappointed that it happened, I said to the customer, look, I apologise, I've hit the corner of your letterbox and I've damaged it, and basically I've gone back there and I've patched it up. I'm going to paint the whole letterbox and make sure it's as it was. So because I'm dealing with brand new customers, it's a bit more challenging, because you're like, this is their first experience that you've had, and this was a first initial mow. But at the same time, because I was up front, you'd hope that was much better than the customer finding the fault or the damage and then having to contact you and have that conversation. So best to be up front. Accidents will happen, but I guess it's much better customer service and people will appreciate if you're up front with them, and if you do damage something, that you'll repair it and get it sorted for them. I have turned down some jobs as well. I mean, I think I talked about this recently as well. If there's certain jobs that you don't think fit what you require, or you don't think you're at a point where you can do those certain jobs. I had a very large body corporate job this week come up where I could have probably dedicated a day a week to that body corp, but it was servicing about I think it was 46 units, lots of common areas. I'm only a single sole operator. I got the job, came through in the lead, went and met with the body corp manager and spoke to him about it. But I didn't feel comfortable about that size of that job and me being in the early stages. So I just thought, you know what, I don't really think this is going to work for me. And then I passed the job back in through the other gyms network, and I managed to get a good operator who's a fairly senior guy to take on that quote. And I also mentioned to the customer, I'm fairly new. I don't think this is the right fit for me, but I've referred the job on to another senior guy that does similar jobs to this now. So he was very thankful for that. Again, I think if you're upfront and honest and you try to transfer those customers back through, it's definitely a positive, because the customer at the end of the day just wants a job done, and they should be able to, hopefully, if you can get it transferred back through to gyms, get that job completed. So I have been the king of the underquote. That's kind of been my saying the last few weeks, is that you will get a lot of those garden cleanup jobs, and they do get a bit challenging to quote, because those palm fronds, that weeding, that, I guess, the communication with the customer about how much they want that tree pruned back can be quite difficult. So you've got to have those very clear conversations, because you might just think it's a very easy pruning job, and that customer won't want that tree pruned back to absolutely nothing, which could take you several hours when you in your head have planned for 30 minutes. So obviously initially when you're learning all this stuff and how long it takes, you will have a lot of underquotes. I feel like I have been the king of the underquote, and it does get very, very frustrating. So you will be happy when you are making money. The best days that I had were the days that I knew that I was making money, that I was on track with getting the job done in the day. You will get very miserable when you realise you're going over and you're losing money. So I had one job where I quoted a whole day to do it, to do a certain set items in a quote that I made for a customer, and ended up being there for another half a day. So I probably spent at least 4 hours over what I thought that job was going to be. So I was very miserable for those few 4 hours, pulling palm fronds out and burning more trees and doing more and more work. So you really need to think about breaking down the quoting and be very sure about what the customer's expectations are of you, because you know, you don't want to get stuck into a job and then realize you're so far under, and then you will be miserable if you're not making money. And you will be definitely sore. That's the biggest thing. I've been in the corporate world for the last, I guess more so probably the last 7 years, but I mean 11 years in a normal job, normal desk kind of a job, and the physicality of it has been, you know, quite an adjustment, but at the same time very, very good for my mental health. The best thing about coming home is I'm physically exhausted and not mentally exhausted, what I used to be. I've lost about 3 kilos already, and I feel like I've put on muscle as well. That's only been a month, and I'm only a fairly, I mean, I'm a tall bloke, but I've put on a bit of weight over the years. So I've lost 3 kilos in the last 4 weeks. Looking forward to losing some more weight. Definitely losing some more fat in the midlife section over the next little while. And I tell you, sometimes getting back home, having a shower, laying down in bed for a little while, and then getting up, you feel like you're the Tin Man. You walk around all kind of seized up. But I've found that getting better and better each day, and physically it's great though. I've really needed that bit of fitness in my life, and I feel a lot better mentally already just in these last few weeks of doing a lot more physical exercise. So I've been thinking as well about what sort of future episodes I should create. Obviously I'm 4 weeks down now, and I might be going over similar content, but if you've got any comments or subjects you'd like me to cover, particularly if you're a gyms or looking at doing a gyms mowing franchise, definitely let me know. I thought about doing a what trailer should I buy, what equipment should I buy, and maybe some more information around the Ego gear that I'm using for my trailer. In saying that, the solar gear has been awesome, the solar setup in the trailer has been awesome, and I've found the Ego commercial gear as well as the normal prosumer gear very, very good. It has been awesome. I haven't had any problems whatsoever with it. The solar one time shut down on me because I tried to charge 2 10-amp batteries overnight, and the capacity of my battery, I got a 140 amp battery, didn't, probably wasn't good to do that at that time of day because there's no solar obviously. So I went up in the morning, I rocked up and it had gone to sleep. so I had to do a little mini jump start with the motorbike battery to get the solar to kick in and start. But in saying that, I haven't got my Anderson plugs on the Hilux yet, so that's something that I'd assume once I get my Anderson plug set up and I'm using the starter battery as well, that would have just triggered straight away and would have started charging. So the only thing that I would change about my solar setup currently is I would put probably at least a 240 amp hour battery, you know, possibly one of the Enerdrive batteries, because they seem to be the really good market leader in that kind of area. So, but in saying that, the system has been pretty much flawless. I'm getting a lot of time out of the equipment, and the solar is working awesome. No fuel stops and not using any petrol gear whatsoever. So again, if you've got any questions, if you want me to do certain subjects, let me know, and I'll talk to you again soon.